How many XRP do you really need to retire? So today I'm breaking it down with real numbers, simple mathematics, and real life scenarios. Stay with me until the very end because I'm going to give you the exact number that I consider enough. However, the truth is simple. The amount of XRP that you need depends entirely on the life you want to build in the future. Which country are you planning to live? Different standards. What are your financial goals? How many people do you have that rely on you? Your expectations, your location, your goals, everything matters. I would argue that retirement is not a magic number, but it's more like a formula. And once you understand the formula, you can calculate exactly where you really stand. Retirement is not about age. Retirement is not about money. This retirement depends entirely on where XRP goes in the next 5 to 10 years. When institutions are fully on board, when tokenization of real-world assets, CBDCs, unfortunately, and liquidity corridors all converge on one single asset. That's the moment XRP stops being a speculative asset and becomes the new financial infrastructure of the entire financial system. And that's when the price finally reflects what we call utility. Now let's look at the scenarios, and first let's start with a conservative scenario and a full utility-based system. A conservative case, a realistic scenario taking in consideration XRP's capabilities. In every one of them, the same number keeps coming. You don't need 50,000 XRP, you don't need 100,000 XRP. For the average person, the retirement zone is actually way less XRP. Let me explain. There is a part that nobody's paying attention, and that's exactly about passive income. The big idea is that you don't retire by selling XRP, but you actually adopt a much wiser strategy. Once XRP becomes financial infrastructure, lending, staking, and tokenizing global debt, that's where the game really changes. Let's start with the first scenario. Let's say XRP hits $1,000. 5,000 XRP becomes $5 million. At just a 5% annual yield, which is very conservative at an institutional level, that's $250,000 a year. That's more than $20,000 a month in passive income. And that's where the math becomes undeniable. I would argue that $20,000 per month allows you to live comfortably in every single country in the planet right now. At today's standards, $20,000 per month is actually a very good wage. You're going to be definitely on the top 0.1% wealthiest people on earth. Let's be a bit more conservative. Let's say XRP hits $200. 5,000 XRP becomes just $1 million. Land that at 5% and you are making about $50,000 per year. That would generate you about $2,000 per month. I would argue that $2,000 replaces the average salary in most countries in the world. So it's not bad either. And that's why I believe 5,000 XRP is a solid number for the average person. That puts you beyond the top 10% holders according to the XRP Rich List updated data, not because it makes you rich overnight, but because the passive income model turns into long-term freedom. You don't really retire because XRP goes to $500 and then you just sell all your XRP. That doesn't make sense. You actually retire because you held long enough to really understand the digital asset that's going to fully run the entire financial system. Will be absolutely priced out because most people, I promise you, they're going to be selling at $10. They will be priced out at $20. So here's the final answer. In my perspective, I do think you need to focus on holding at least 5,000 XRP. Of course, if you have the possibility, the financial capabilities to hold more, I think that's definitely a great choice because that gives you more flexibility. Let's say if you want to sell 1,000 XRP or 2,000 XRP, perhaps you want to do something faster. You don't want to wait longer. Holding, for example, 10,000 XRP, I think that gives you more flexibility. But just to make it clear, I do think 5,000 mid to long term is definitely enough for the average person. I'm not talking about 20 years. I'm talking about perhaps 5 to 7 years from now. I expect actually much sooner than that. If you want to take some profits earlier, that's fine. You have more XRP that doesn't compromise your long-term holdings. Let's say someone has 15,000 XRP. Let's say you want to sell 5,000 XRP for $500. just an example, that will give you $2.5 million. You can do a lot of things with that money, and you don't necessarily have to work. You don't necessarily have to go to work. You don't necessarily have to wait so long, but of course, without selling your long-term back. So more XRP, more flexibility, but if you can just accumulate 5,000 XRP, I totally believe that's going to be enough on the long term. If you are watching this to the end, drop me a comment. Let me know how many XRP do you think is necessary one person to hold in order to retire. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to see you in the next video. Done.